And we're live. That helps me with syncing it up.
Yeah. No, you need something.
So it helps.
Yeah.
Welcome to episode 3, Be Better podcast. Here with me, if you're listening and not on the YouTube, which we do offer YouTube as well, is the Ross, the boss, Mr. Jacob.w.ross.
That's
Sorry,
right.
Messed up your intro. Doing a little pre-squat podcast. Get some things off our mind.
Yep.
We have a jam-packed show, as some of my buddies would say.
Yes.
We actually have topics this time instead of I think we could do a lot of free, whatever you want to call it, kind of style podcasts. But I think having a little bit of a schedule is good. It keeps us on track, keeps it, like I said, these aren't going to be 2-hour podcasts, so it can kind of keep it more to the point, and then kind of just get our message out for the week that we're feeling or to elaborate on some things. And this week we're going to do, Jacob brought up a good point of scheduling success, and what that means to us, and how we kind of have set ourselves up through the different ventures that we've, how do I say it? Came about.
Yeah, I mean, again, part of the podcast is to share experiences that we have and obviously include other people as well. But, I think a question that you get a ton is, how do you find time to do everything?
Yeah.
How do you find time to be a dad? And, you have a job that takes a lot of hours, and you have, obviously you train at literally a world record level. You have businesses outside of that between Be Better and also real estate and other things that are going on. So, you get that question all the time.
Yep.
And I think the assumption is that you have some sort of magic personality or magic formula. And in my opinion, I don't think it's that. I think it's more of, it's really two things, in my opinion. If you want to be successful, you have to schedule your life in such a way that you can be successful. And it doesn't mean that you have to literally, map out every single minute of your day, but it does mean that you have to go into your day with some sort of a time plan.
Yep.
You have to go into it with some sort of a purpose. It's the same thing if you're trying to lose weight. People are like, oh, I don't want to count calories or macros. I'm like, well, you don't have to count them forever. But if you're overweight and you're trying to make change, you got to count. Yeah. Just like if you go to the end of end of every month, your bank account's zero, you're like, man, I need to save some money. You can't just spend money all month and hope it works out.
Yep.
It's a poor plan. Same thing with counting calories. It's a poor plan. Same thing with your time. So you have to budget your time, and budget always means ahead of time, never after the fact.
Right.
And you just have to think, okay, I need to get X, Y, and Z done this week. Where are my windows that I know I can be highly productive? And then really lean into those times and give it your best effort. Because the problem is, if you just like, oh, I'll figure it out, you're going to get to the end of the day, and maybe you do have time at the end of the day, but you're tired. Maybe your kids would like some attention. You want to give it to them, your spouse, et cetera, et cetera. And let's say you sneak on the computer, you sneak away to do something for a few minutes, but it's still not super productive, right?
Right.
And that's just frustrating because you feel like, oh, I had the time, I didn't really do it. And you just end up setting yourself up for failure instead of scheduling your success.
Bam. I like that.
And, the other thing I would say, the flip side of it, though, is scheduling, can also be not an hour-by-hour thing. It can be an event. So, I always tell this story about when I was at TCU. One of the best semesters I had academically was when I took 24 hours, 23 hours in the semester.
Credit hours.
And I was an RA. So I had a job on top of, school. And it's because I didn't have time to mess around. It just didn't exist. So, same thing if you want to make a change in your strength or, I'm trying to do bodybuilding right now. Well, you have to pick a show, right? And that kind of scheduling that prompts you to kind of get everything forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and to your original point, I get that question all the time, and I don't even show everything I usually do on Instagram because it's like, to me, sometimes it's almost too much. I'm trying to get better at showing more that I do and not saying like, hey, look at me. More just like, hey, look how I can do this. If I can do it, definitely me. Anybody could do this. But I definitely get that question a lot of how you all over the place. And usually I don't even post about my day job. I never really post about it just because I don't like having the company logo in there and just my other reasons. But it comes down to scheduling. Before I started, doing Smart Sync with you, doing everything on the side, it was just a free-for-all, but it was basically just me and my wife at the time. And it was no plan. My plan was work, my one job.
Right.
That depicted my schedule.
Yeah.
If we have plans for Saturday, Sunday, and all of a sudden there's a storm, I'm not coming anymore. Like that was our schedule, and it is a little bit of that now. But now, like you said,
Well, so hold on. This is actually a really good point. So let me ask you a couple of questions. I think this would be good. All right.
this could be 2 hours.
It could be 3. No.
Could be 4.
So what I hear you saying is that before you had kids, before you had 2 or 3 other businesses on top of a job that's highly demanding, it was just you, your wife, and you still had the same 24-hour packet of time.
Yeah.
But somehow you add 3, almost 4 kids to that mix, right?
Yeah.
You add 2 or 3 jobs to that mix, same time,
Yeah.
and you're still getting all of this stuff done.
More.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You're getting more done.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you this, like looking backwards, Tom from 7-8 years ago compared to Tom today, what do you think were like the main strategies that you've implemented to get to this place? I think it's easier to look back and say it than it is to like.
Well, so back it up even a little further. Before I came up with some strategies to get stuff done, it was my reasons changed, right? My why changed. I could kind of get away with doing my one job, make great money. Me and my wife or girlfriend at the time, no biggie, see her on the weekends kind of a thing. And then getting her pregnant and then having the child, Emery, my firstborn, was like, it was not an emotional like crying time. Like I'm so like the happy tears a dad is prone to have when he has his child. I didn't have any of that. I was just like, oh shit, I'm not ready. Like financially, I go, oh, I'm not where I need to be because I need to make sure this kid is set up for success forever. And it was that kind of snapped it into me. I'm like, I got to do something more. And I wasn't sure what it was at the time, but I'm like, I got to pick it up in other areas. So I either worked more, and then we came across Smart Strength and stuff like that. But the scheduling of my success just came from mornings. I've always been good at getting up in the mornings. Don't get me wrong. I'll sleep in until 9 o'clock if you let me. If I didn't care as much, I'll sleep in. But I know if I sleep until 7, I don't like myself in the mornings because I'm like, I wasted 3 hours snoozing. Some days, like everybody, you need it. I was up till midnight podcasting on my other podcast. I didn't get up at 4 and said I got up at 5:30. Like, oh, well, I probably really needed that sleep. But my mornings is my thing. That's my Tom time. Typically, on a good morning, I wake up at 3:45 because then I could beat my coffee pot up. So I beat that up. So first thing in the morning, I'm already beating somebody up. I go, beat that coffee pot up. Sweet. So then I press the buttons on it and make it run, catch up to me. That's kind of like my thing, my little game I play. And then I could sit at my computer and I can go for 2.5 hours. And it's like I could get 8 hours at work done in 2 hours because it's quiet, unless my kids wake me up or wake up when I'm working. It's quiet, and then I can have my lists. Okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z for Be Better Coaching. These clients need to be addressed. These things need to be changed. What do I have coming up next week that I can prepare for if my week's lighter this week? If it is lighter, what else can I do for the company? Can I do a bunch of emails? Can I check on invoices to make sure everything's going correctly? Just anything. And then outside of that, what else can I do on the side as well to make money? And that happens to be lately real estate. So I'd find time at work to do it as opposed to, because sometimes the mornings get so full in that 2 hours, because lately it'll be an hour of work, hour and a half, and then I'll train for an hour. And then at 6:30, I'll go to work my day job. And then, like you said, I come home and it's like, by the time the kids are down, 8:30, if they're actually sleeping, I really, unless I have to, I can go in the office and ship some orders. Sure, I get some apparel together, but like I can't program. It's I understand now doing it. Like when people say they have like a desk job and it's stressful, I'm like, I work all day outside. It's -5 degrees out. I'm up in the air. Go, that's stressful. But for me now, that's like, I'm good. I'm smoking a cigar. I got some music on. I'm working. This is like my zone. Yeah. And now I'm like at the computer for like 30 minutes. Sometimes I'll go, I can't do this. Yeah. I go, wow, what a different perspective. Or if I can't sit like this because I'm like typing. I'm like, I'm going to write a workout an hour here. I can't do this. I'm done. And I have to like log off or I'll focus on something else. But the other point, like I can ramble on this forever, for just breaking things down for me scheduling, like I have roughly always 30-ish clients. And then what I'll do is I write down every single one of their names every week. And then I'm very old school. I cross them off. Like we run everything through an app, so it's easy to see if something's green Friday, you know the client's good. If it's red, you're like, okay, it's coming up, or it was yesterday, they're overdue. They need some training. I still write every single thing down on a piece of paper. And when I cross that name off, like it feels good. Like there's an emotion attached to that, knowing that even if it was a repeat of the workout just because they were maybe on vacation or they were sick, if I can repeat it and then cross that name off, it like feels good. You feel accomplished. You see something being done. And that's what I've had to help our other coaches with. Tiny Tiff, who used to coach with us, I remember talking on the phone. She's like, yeah, I'm just a little stressful because I have like 8 clients and I'm kind of all over the place with where their schedule's at. I'm like, Tiff, you got to write them down.
Yeah.
I go, not only you're going to have to be able to control that, you'll be able to plan your day, plan your schedule, and you're going to feel better knowing you cross their name off. I go, it's old school, but for me, it works. I have to write it down.
Well, in I think we talked about this briefly on the very first episode, but a lot of the anxiety that people feel from work or jobs has to do with the procrastination aspect.
Yeah.
Of you know you should be doing something and you're not.
Yep.
It's not the actual work, it's the fact that you haven't done it yet and it's kind of pending. And like you're the way that you do it is awesome. I do something similar where I have a whiteboard in my office, and you know, I don't talk about this a lot either, but I have several jobs, right?
Yeah.
I work for a nonprofit. Within that nonprofit, there's a ton of stuff that I'm doing. Then we have Be Better, and then I do some consulting on the side and some gym stuff, whatever. So there's a lot of things going on for me at any given time. So I have a whiteboard, and I just kind of group every project out, and there's a to-do list, right? And I just look at it when I sit down. I'm like, okay, what has to get done today?
Yep.
Like, what has to get done? And I write, like you said, I write those things down first, and you start crossing those off. And this idea of like, when you cross it off, that feeling that you get, it's because you just gain control over your anxiety.
Right.
There's nothing more empowering, in my opinion, than gaining control over stress. Like once you accomplish that, you're like, wow, I actually have the power to do it. And then you do another one, and you're like, oh man, I'm on a roll now. But again, it comes back to you have to organize and set yourself up in a way that you can do that. Because if you just go in, like you were saying, and like you just kind of look at the app and you see all these clients and different days and different that, like it can get overwhelming quickly.
Right.
You know, if I go in and just think about, oh, I got a project in Zimbabwe and I've got one in South Sudan, I'm going to Egypt soon, and I got 30 something clients like you. We're about the same always. Like, oh my gosh, I got to work on this thing for, I do some work with Barbell Brigade, and it's like, man, it's really easy to sit there and say, shit.
Yeah.
I don't know what I should do first.
Yeah. Stress, anxiety.
But if you just take a few minutes, just literally a few minutes, David Goggins talks about like having a morning meeting with himself. And, the idea isn't unique to him. It's something that I think successful people have done for a long time. Rob Dyrdek from Rob and Big.
Yeah, he's huge on it.
Yeah, he has a podcast that's just kind of talking about similar things in there, like how has he been successful, and one of the things he talks about is similar, like sit down in the morning and like schedule out your day. And again, it doesn't mean minute by minute, you can't be flexible or anything like that. It just means you have to go in the day with some sort of a plan. You have to budget your time, because otherwise time is the most valuable resource we have. You're not getting more of it. Right. Can't buy it, can't steal it. You can't cultivate it, you can't grow it. Like time is people say time is infinite. It's not infinite for you and I. There's an expiration date.
Time is infinite. Our time is finite.
Correct. Right. That's what I'm saying. For you and I, time is not. From
Yes.
our perspective, it's got an end date to it. So why would you not be careful with that resource, right? Why would you not try to budget with that resource? But again, it's about finding the strategy that works for you.
Yeah, and to your point on like spending all the time worrying about something because you're procrastinating about it, like that's huge. That causes a lot of anxiety. A lot of anxiety can be washed away with just doing what you're worried about or taking care of it if it's a small thing like that. And also there's a book that I'm reading. It's like Mel Roberts, I think. I forget the author's name. The 5-second rule is really popular. And her whole thing is like you just count down from 5 to 0 and then you go. Like I've just started reading, but it's just you go, okay, I really need to call this person for a job interview. I need to have this difficult conversation with X, Y, and Z. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Call. And she goes, doing that will like kind of catapult. She goes, it sounds silly. It almost sounds like kind of childish, like you're counting. But even like some things with dealing with children, you can tend to overreact and throw that hammer down. Instead of taking a step back, it forces you to be like, okay, before I respond, 5, 4, 3, 2, okay, hey, don't hit your sister. You know what I mean? Instead of like freaking out. And
Right.
that's what I try to practice daily is like, when you said control, that like sparked a light. Like that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to control more things, not control people, but control my own reactions to situations. How can I have a better outcome in the situation and not be the old Tom? Like, how do I kill that guy
Yeah.
and become a better version of him?
Well, but it's like you said, it sounds silly, but the older I get, the more that I'm convinced that like this idea of, just keep using the word infinite amounts of freedom. The idea that infinite amounts of freedom is somehow a goal that we should be chasing. I'm not sure about that, because it seems like, this is just my observation, the more free time people get, it seems to be the dumber things that people do with it,
Yeah.
or they don't do anything at all.
Yeah.
I always tell people, like, go through that thing and look at how much time do you spend on your phone. Like, look at how much time you spend on an app. Look at how much time you watch TV. You're like, oh, I watched a whole season in 2 days. Well, crap, that's 12 hours right there.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yep.
Again, not saying you can't have fun and do things, but I'm just saying, like, if you just kind of leave yourself without any sort of boundaries, right? Any sort of borders, any sort of discipline, then our human nature is such to take advantage of that and just not do anything.
Yeah. There's too many distractions now too.
Correct.
That doesn't help. So, and you also have, taking your time back is huge in the aspect of if you can load more on your plate, like pressure creates diamonds, but it does.
Well,
like for me, having a daughter, like, pressure.
Right.
I got to figure stuff out. And I always feel better. Like right now we're slow at work, so like it bugs me. So now that we're slow at work, I've come out with like 3 different t-shirts. And then I do more stuff with emails for the company. I'm like, I have more time, and I'm not filling this with scrolling, dude. I go, I have to be productive. I'm going to start reading more when I'm at work or at my lunch breaks. I'm going to start doing X, Y, and Z more because I have the free time. And then in my free time that I know won't be there infinitely,
Right.
because work picks up eventually, what can I automate so I can still have the same amount of production and not be there?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm transitioning now, to have a little bit more control of that. As in, instead of when I get busy, then everything in the business slows down. Like I don't want that. We need steady growth, and it can't be depicted on Tom's work schedule.
Well, it's the second side of, what I was kind of let off with is there's that side of like scheduling your day and being organized and making a plan. But then there's a side of like scheduling stuff in your life to force you into a situation to do something.
Yeah.
And that's cultivating discipline. And like you said, it sounds silly to say, I'm going to take 5 seconds. Well, you're scheduling in discipline that way. Because again, if you leave it up to, I don't even use them, if you leave it to Jacob, my reaction may or may not be good. If I use the wisdom of, let me take 5 seconds. Okay, I might have time to choose something better. Because a lot of times we get into this thing where we live through our emotions.
Yep.
And, obviously, like our buddy Cam used to joke, like, emotions aren't real and all this. They're very real. They dictate, I would say, most of what people do. But just because you have an emotion, you have to have emotional intelligence. It doesn't mean that you have to act on that emotion, right? You can feel however you're going to feel. That is very real to you, but that doesn't mean that has to dictate how you live your life. There's never a day that I get up at 3:45 like you, and I feel like getting up.
Right.
Especially right now. It was -8 today or whatever it was outside.
Yep.
I don't care that I'm inside my house. I know that I'm about to go out, and I'm not even working outside like you. Just walking out and feeling that at 4 o'clock in the morning does not feel good.
I'll wake you up, though.
It'll never feel good,
No.
right? And so it's like I don't wake up. I'm like, yes, oh, this is amazing. I get to get up and go outside -8. Da, 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 da. But you have to put yourself in a situation where you don't have a choice.
Yep.
And the flip side of that too is if you can kind of cultivate that discipline and make yourself into a situation where you're super productive earlier in the day when you have more energy and your mind is clear and things are slower, then later in the day when you do choose, hey, I'm going to spend time with my kids. You know what? I am going to sit down and watch a show with my wife. I am going to watch this, football game that you love to watch.
Oh, yeah.
You can actually do it and enjoy it because you're not thinking about all the stuff you should have been doing earlier in the day.
Yeah.
And that's the piece that people miss is when you live, kind of by your emotions all the time and say, I don't feel like doing this or I don't feel like doing that. First of all, when you overcome it, you get that feeling of control again. Yep. Wow, I am in control. My feelings don't have to determine how I live, right? And then the second part of it is you can actually create time for all those things that you would like to be doing later in the day guilt-free. You're not stressed anymore because you know you've done your work for the day. And it's crazy that we live in a society where we have to talk about that, but it's true. Because of our jobs and the way that technology works, it's made it so we can work anytime from anywhere. You know, back in the day, you get up, oh, I have to farm this field today. You go to bed at night knowing that you finished, plowing the field. It's done.
Right.
Life doesn't work like that anymore. It's a lot more complicated than that. And we have all these things that can kind of keep us perpetually working. So again, if you don't have a plan and, hey, I'm going to do this, and you can end up in this state of I should always be doing something. And that's not a healthy place to be. I mean, I think you've talked about that before about yourself, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but you're such a go, 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 go kind of guy. You almost have to like schedule time for yourself to like take a second.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do. And I've been getting better at it lately. I haven't really told many people this, but I actually started going to therapy a few weeks ago because I think I'll act on that hammer emotion a lot with like my kids and my family. Not that I'm like a terrible person, but I think I could be, I think I could be better at doing some things. I go, one day it popped in my head, why am I the way that I am? Why do I react like this? Where did this come from? Did I see it in a movie? Was I around it when I was a kid? Is that the way my dad react? Is that the way mom react? Like, where did this all come from? So that kind of sparked it up and like, if my goal is to be better, you got to walk the walk. Therapy was never for me. I'm like, grow up. You get something wrong? You figure it out yourself. I'll figure it out. Always that guy. I'll figure it out. That's broken. I'll figure it out. Hey, we're short on money. I'll figure it out. I'm always going to figure it out. This stuff, I'm like, man, I don't know about this. Like, this ain't my thing. I told my therapist that, and I'm like, this ain't my thing. I go, but I'm going to try it because I'm trying to better myself to have more control over the emotions that you might have. Call it whatever you want. When you hear something and you don't really like it and you react with a hammer, and I'm saying like, hey, don't do that. That kind of overreaction, overcorrection, that sparks a lot of negative emotions in the person you're talking to. And usually becomes a bigger issue than it could have been, if I would have been like, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's think about this different. So I started doing that to try to just take control of more things in my life and try to understand how did I become the person I am, and I have to be the one to change things that I don't like about myself because it's going to repeat onto my children. And how do I be the one that breaks this cycle of whatever I think is negative that I don't like about myself, so I don't repeat it on my kids, and then they are forever better for it. So it's just all about pushing the ball down the road for me, very little bit at a time, and just it's the whole thing about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Like, I didn't really want to do it. I didn't really want to go to therapy. It's hard for me to schedule that hour once a week, but I'm like, this is super important. It's going to lead to a lot of better things in my life and better relationships just with me and my kids, with me and guys at work, with taking on more leadership roles. You don't see a lot of leaders screaming and yelling and swearing at people because it's not respected. Right. And just because you're in a position of leadership, and it doesn't mean you'll have necessarily people are going to respect your authority. You don't have to be an authoritative person to have people be led by you and to look at you as a leader. So I'm like, okay, how do I calm down? How do I talk a little bit better? How do I figure things out, step back instead of just react and control more situations? So that's what it's all about for me.
Well, I'll tell you something that I heard at church a long time ago, and I completely agree with it. You might be right, but if you're wrong in the way you're right, you're wrong. Because if you're dealing with other people and the goal is for them to understand what you're saying, if you know that you're right, but you're communicating it all wrong, then they don't know that you're right.
Yeah.
So then are you really right at that point? Because the people you care about, who you want to understand you and what you're saying, they don't hear it. They don't understand it.
We see that at work all the time.
So then you're not right anymore.
Yeah.
Because you're not communicating.
It's the older guy at work screaming at him because he was screamed at this way. And I'm like, this is not the most effective way to teach somebody. I can't sit there and yell at someone 40 feet away from me to do something. But hold on, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You know what I can do? I can go up with them.
Yeah.
Hey, this is how I do it. This is the reason why I do it. You could do this. You could also do this. This is how I do it. Like, people need to be shown different ways. So you can't be screaming at someone because you know it's the right way to do it. And then, like you said, it's the wrong right way.
Well, and the pushback would be from the old school guys of, oh, well, see, this is what's wrong with America. You're making people weak. Da, da, da. And I would argue the opposite. I grew up high school football, deep Texas, rural, and all our coaches did was mother F this, mother F that, you stupid SOB. I mean, literally to the point that one time our head coach, our principal had to come down at halftime and say, we can hear you over the band at the top of the stadium. Mother effing every other word about every other kid here. Like, you can't talk like that. Like, you just can't. It's not appropriate, right? And you ask anybody on our football team, did they want to play football? No. Everyone hated it. They hated the coaches. They hated playing. They hated everything about it. Even myself, I was a very good football player. I hated football by the time I was done with my high school experience because I just had a bunch of guys yelling at me. I didn't have anybody teaching me. I didn't have anybody working with me. I didn't have anybody, showing me anything. They were just yelling the whole time and trying to establish this, like you said, this like kind of false sense of authority that if I yell loud enough, then you're going to respect me or you have to do what I say. And I was a kid who wanted to please. I wasn't rebellious at all. And I still hated it. You know what I mean? And so the point is like, if you really want to, you want to lead people, then that means you have to show them the right way to do things. And that's both in how you react and how you teach. And if you want to have people who aren't weak, then empower them.
Yeah.
Don't yell at them, empower them. You want somebody, if you don't want to keep yelling at somebody, like you said, go up there, show them a couple of different ways to do it. Let them pick the best way that you're like, hey, this is a safe and a good way to do it. And then guess what? You don't have to talk to them anymore about it. It's done.
Right. Then you stop having that screaming conversation.
It's done.
That's what people don't get. And you're like, I'm just shaking my head. I'm just like, this is not how you do it.
Right.
It's like they're in these leadership roles, but people don't listen to them.
Yeah, but what that takes on your part, and this is, again, something that I think we miss a lot, is humility. It takes you saying, you know what? It's back to this emotional intelligence. I feel like getting upset because I think this person should already understand this, but instead I'm going to choose a different route, and I'm going to go up there and I'm going to do something I don't think I should have to be doing, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Right.
Now, here's the side about not being weak. Let's say you go up there and do that a couple times and they still get it wrong. Okay, now we have a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
that's a different thing.
If somebody doesn't care, it's completely different. But if somebody actually cares and you're just screaming at them, but it's like anything. It's not just like work. It's if somebody is messing something up and maybe even they were good at it before, it's not, hey, if you mess this up, it's not going to be good for you.
Right.
Developing better leadership roles and being able to help people is developing empathy and saying, this is not like Jacob. Jacob, for example, a couple of his clients emailed me and said they're not getting their workouts. This is Jacob's never displayed this in 1,000 days of working together, 3 years, Instead of being like, Jacob, what are we doing? We're 50-50 on this. What are you messing up? I'd be like, what's going on, dude?
Yeah.
Is everything broke that has internet? Is something going on at home?
Yeah.
Talk to me. That's what developing empathy is, which for me is very hard to do. But like little tips and tricks of like just somebody doing something out of the normal, instead of screaming like most people do because they're not listening or they're not being heard, they're freaking out on them. Instead of like, I don't think this is right.
Well, I'll tell you a shortcut to empathy that unfortunately most people they don't have the opportunity to do. And just from my experience, something that I can share is traveling. I've been blessed to travel tons of places, right? I've been to every continent but Antarctica. Every year I go overseas, probably 2 months out of the year, different countries, different places. And you develop empathy real quick because you start to see, wow, St. Charles, Illinois, the world's bigger than that, right? It's bigger than Chicago. It's bigger than America. There's a lot of ways you can be doing things. There's a lot of ways you could not be doing things. There's a lot of things that people have to deal with that I never have to think about, right? Yeah. And the more that you are able to expose yourself to that, the faster it develops. But again, not everybody has a job where they're able to do that. And it would, oh my gosh, if I didn't have that job, I wouldn't do it.
Right.
It's expensive. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm able to do it because it's part of my job. But the point being is like empathy is this idea of like I'm putting others before myself, right? Good leaders put others before themselves. They do.
Yeah.
Good husbands do that. Good fathers do that. Good leaders in the workplace do that. Shoot, even in the gym, I always tell people this about coming to train with you the first time, like 4 years ago now, 4.5 years ago. I think everyone that's ever come to train with you has been like nervous.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, Tom's a 5-time world record squat holder. I'm going to be in the way. And the first thing you always told me is, hey, I don't care what weight you're doing. Do your best. Attack it. We're lifting weights anyway. So if we need to take off a couple plates, we do. We're lifting weights. Who gives a crap? We're going to lift it off the bar and put it back on. Big deal. And like, that's leadership. It's saying like, come on, I'll teach you. And I went from squatting 550 to 700 in a couple of years. And I'm old for lifting, right?
Yeah.
I'm about to be 37. That's old for lifting. And so for me to make that kind of progress, even this late, so to speak, in my lifting career, it's just kind of shows you about your attitude towards it. But I think that comes easier for you because you were shown that too.
Right.
You always talk about you and Huck and John and all these other guys, the people that you learned from, and the way that you learned that. And so I think the next step for not just you, but for anybody listening is, okay, those areas that you're good at that, what areas are you not? Identify it, right?
Yep.
Think about your why. Like you said, it's on the freaking front page of our website. Like, once you figure that out, things become a lot clearer.
Yeah.
A lot clearer. And I'll tell you this, sometimes, I wake up, I don't feel like doing anything, right? And when you work from home, it's similar to what you're talking about, like working behind a desk. When COVID hit and everybody's working from home and I'm out traveling, whatever, I'm like, man, that'd be nice to work at home. There's some stress there too. It's not as easy as people think it is. It's hard to tell your kids constantly, I can't play with you when they're home because you got to work. It's hard to like not leave your house for a day or two. Like, there's something about getting outside and doing it that just kind of wakes you up and energizes you. But if I sit there and I think about my why am I doing all this stuff? Oh, I'm doing it because I have, 3 little human beings out there that the only source of anything is going to come from me and my wife, right? I'm doing it for my wife. Like, that's why I'm doing this stuff. I get motivated real quick.
Yep. It's easy. Yeah. Let's end on that. I like it. We got some squats to do, dude.
Yeah.
We might have to do a part 2 on this.
I think we can.
Because I could probably go for another hour or two. But we're going to wrap it up. Follow us, official BeBetterBrand@gmail.com. BeBetterBrand. What's the website?
BeBetterOfficial.
BeBetterOfficial.com. Instagram is official BeBetterBrand. A little all over the place just to secure those names in. Follow us. We're pumping out a lot of good content here lately. One of my goals this year is to put out more YouTube podcasts, so we've been consistent with that so far. And then we're going to offer eventually more products and services to, kind of what our coaching does outside of the gym. I think is the goal this year as well. We'll get more into that later. Some stuff me and Jacob have to talk about. But follow us, please. Like us on Spotify. Check out the YouTube as well. We're on YouTube with the same podcast, same audio. Nice crystal clear camera I have that I finally got set up, and everything actually looks really well on YouTube. So check it out. Support us. We appreciate all the support. Check out the apparel. We're going to be doing new T-shirt styles with this Be Better brand. I'm going to be pushing those this month as well. So check us out. Support us any way you can. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
If you like the message.
So yeah, if anything resonates with you, the best thing you can do is pass it on.
Yep.
Right? It helps us with what we're trying to do, and it also helps other people, which is the goal.
That's our goal. So be better.
Amen.